Today we're going to be talking about a difficult subject, but one that's overtaking the nation. The grooming gang scandal, a grotesque betrayal of thousands of children up and down the country. These were our children, abused under the nose of authorities who chose to look the other way. This isn't just a scandal, this is a moral catastrophe on a systematic level. These grooming gangs of predatory men, particularly from Asian and Pakistani heritage, systematically targeted vulnerable children, usually from care systems or broken homes. In Rotherham alone, the 2014 J report revealed that up to 1,400 children had been abused, raped, or exploited in some way between 1997 and 2013. That is 1,400 children in one town. Let that sink in. It wasn't just Rotherham. Telford's inquiry in 2020 estimated that up to 1,000 children had been abused or exploited in some way over the decades. Rochdale, Oldham, Oxford, the list goes on. These were not just isolated incidents. This was a widespread epidemic of evil. The perpetrators exploited these children with chilling precision. They would ply them with drugs and alcohol and often make them think that they were in love with them. Girls as young as 11 were coerced into so-called relationships and groomed into believing that they were in love with their abuser, only to be abused later down the line and passed around to other men like they were nothing but toys. As stated in the Casey report, most of these gangs were not formal groups, but rather loose groups through family ties such as cousins or brothers, or knowing each other from work such as taxi firms. Many of these councils overseeing these towns, often Labour-run, were simply paralysed by the fear of being labelled racist. They knew what was happening but chose to prioritise community cohesion over children. The 2014 J report revealed that the Labour Council was aware of the abuse since the early 2000s and chose not to act on it. They've been covering this up for years. They've been laughing at us and lying to us, calling us far-right, racists, thugs, and jumping on a bandwagon, all the while knowing what they had done. Telford's 2020 inquiry found the same thing. Local authorities cares more about social cohesion rather than stopping child rapists. The Home Office was not much better. Reports early as 2002 flagged grooming gangs. And yet, there were thousands of children still sacrificed on the altar of bureaucratic spinelessness. The public has sinned through the lies for years. A YouGov poll taken in January this year revealed that 40% of Labour voters believe that there is a deliberate cover-up going on, with only 19% disagreeing. When your own supporters are calling you out, you know there's definitely something going on. Worse still, some of these victims actually have criminal records still lasting to this day for actions that they committed while under coercion. One unfortunate example of this is Sammy Woodhouse. She was coerced into robbing a post office and assault, and she has recently lost the case to try and clear her name. It is a huge miscarriage of justice. Multiply her story by thousands. There is no victim of these grooming gangs that should have a criminal record for actions that they did while under coercion. They were children. It's as simple as that. Labour have downplayed, deflected, and even mocked those trying to raise awareness of this issue. For example, in a clip that went viral on X, Lucy Powell, when asked about the grooming gangs, simply started saying things like, "Oh, blowing that old dog whistle are we, blowing that old trumpet." This is someone who sits in Parliament making decisions for our country. They don't care. They do not care about the children of this country. These comments just show Labour's broader strategy. Shut down anyone who exposes the truth if it makes you look bad. They will come for anyone who exposes them for what they are, which is a bunch of groomer and rapist apologists because they want votes and they want social cohesion. Well, yeah, it really looks like they've achieved social cohesion. Everyone's really happy right now. In 2023, Labour's Yvette Cooper dodged a question in a BBC interview where she started talking about broader safeguarding issues instead of focusing on the direct questions that she was asked. It's a strategy. Deny, deflect, dismiss. This isn't new. In 2012, Labour's then Home Secretary faced massive backlash for even hinting at a link between ethnicity and the grooming gangs. The result? Silence. They basically reduced these victims' pain to political inconvenience. Just another example of government sacrificing its people at the altar of virtue signalling. The Southport riots in July 2024, following the death of 3 little girls at a Taylor Swift dance class. Riots erupted Not because they were mass swathes of violent, racist thugs that all of a sudden just saw an opportunity to go out and throw bricks and bins and set things on fire. Because the public were angry. They had been angry for years, and this was the straw that broke the camel's back. But once again, Keir Starmer came out and called everyone far-right racist, jumping on a far-right bandwagon, and refused to give us the information that we knew was there. We knew that they were hiding it. Smearing people who raise those issues is exactly how these things get covered up in the first place. His government focuses on prioritising hate speech and social cohesion over child rape. That should tell you everything about their priorities. The June 2025 Baroness Casey report was a damning indictment of systematic failure. Over 2/3 of ethnicity data regarding grooming gang perpetrators was missing. That is 2/3. That is an astronomical number of perpetrators whom we know nothing of the heritage. And considering the levels of mass migration and assimilation issues that we're having in this country, that people are rightfully angry about, it's no wonder they don't want to collect the data on ethnicity. It would be a difficult conversation, and as we know, Labour does not like to have those. Where the data does exist, men of Pakistani and Asian heritage are severely overrepresented. However, this again is something that we've known for years, but once again was covered up due to lack of evidence. The Telford inquiry in 2022 also revealed that there was a massive overrepresentation of Pakistani and Asian heritage men. But they said that they could not gather further evidence due to lack of engagement from the Asian community and evidence submitted by perpetrators. That is a pathetic and spineless excuse. Yet flawed data has been used to brand everyone far-right and racist and dismiss claims of Pakistani grooming gangs as nothing but hogwash and far-right conspiracy. This has now again been proven by the Baroness Casey report. Everything that we've been saying has been proven true. And now all of the Labour politicians are coming out and saying, oh no, we never called anyone far-right.
You said that it's a far-right bandwagon if you're calling for national inquiry. I know you're talking about politicians, but a lot of GB News viewers and listeners were also concerned and they felt you were calling them far-right. Would you perhaps regret that remark?
Well, I wasn't calling them far-right. Now, Chris, right. I think you maybe been in the room. And
yes, I was there.
You will have known. I said expressly, politicians, and I mean politicians.
I mean, there's a clip of Keir Starmer saying that he never called the people far-right. He was referring to politicians.
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Well, that's just simply not true. One of the more infuriating failures was the local care homes that these children were in often hired taxi drivers that were actually in these grooming gangs. They had easy access to these girls, as proven in the 2014 J report in Rotherham. In Rochdale, a 2013 report showed similar patterns. One Rochdale victim recalled being picked up and taken around drives which were disguised as work runs, on which she would be abused. Why weren't these drivers vetted properly? These are supposed to be council-run locations for children who do not have a home, who do not have a family. They're supposed to be safe there. And yet, they were being handed to these men on a silver platter, just allowed to be carted off for sometimes days at a time. When I went to Oldham to cover a Let Women Speak event, I spoke to a lady who would rather not be named, but she used to work in a foster home. She used to flag up and say, you know, they're coming back with bruises, they're coming back with marks, they're taking drugs, they're doing this. Have you noticed that they're getting all giddy and like doing all this makeup for these men and things like that? And she was told, he said, if you try and stop those girls from going out, you will be the one that gets into trouble with the law. We are not allowed to stop them. These girls were leaving, getting raped. She said that they looked mauled when they got home. Well, I say home. These children did not have homes. They were lambs at a slaughterhouse. Some of these stories are things that people couldn't even dream of, and it was covered up. Time and time and time and time again. They had decades, so many opportunities to uncover the truth, to show people what was really going on, to fix it, to give justice to the victims, and they chose not to. One of the most sickening aspects of this is that some of these cases will not be automatically classed as rape. Cases like this, When the child is between the ages of 13 to 15, it is not automatically classed as rape, and it will be considered if they consented or if they were quote unquote in love with the perpetrator. Now, just a reminder that these are cases that have taken place in England. These are crimes that have taken place up and down the UK, in Britain. And by British law, nobody under the age of 16 can consent, even if they appear to. It says that in our legislation, even if they appear to. It also says that consent must be given freely, without the influence of drugs, alcohol, or any other kind of coercion, which we know these girls were all victim to. A 2021 child exploitation report revealed that most local authorities end up believing that these children, these victims, are just troubled teens making their own decisions, making bad decisions, but making their own decisions that they are consenting to. Once again, I remind you that children cannot consent. There are so many other aspects at which Labour has covered this story up, and people are finally waking up. The story is far from over, and there are still children out there being groomed and abused to this day. There are still people turning a blind eye. There are still politicians turning a blind eye. In fact, there are politicians who are actively trying to cover this up. Some believe that there are politicians who are directly involved themselves. Hopefully now, with the report out, more information will keep coming to light, and hopefully these victims will one day finally get the justice that they deserve.